cold as a tear in the eye of my
very
next
welcome
guest.
to Liveline.
Joe, what does it feel like when you hear that sig tune again?
So evocative, so evocative. I'm surprised they got rid of it. It's written by Stockton's Wayne, Mike Hanron and the boys, and I used to meet Mike in the old radio centre when he was in doing bits of work, and he'd always say to me at least once a year, "Thanks, we got the Lanzarote this year off it."
The royalty check.
Yeah, it's only probably tuppence a day.
Yeah.
But I just think it's so evocative, and the programme is on at a very odd time, 1:45, so you need something.
A call to listen.
A call to listen, exactly.
Yeah, so once you hear that in the background, you turn up the volume.
Or you turn it off, whatever.
Yeah, of course. Now, you're 7 months out. Was it a tough decision to decide to go in the end?
I had extended my contract by 2 years already. They asked me to do another year, and between jigs and reels, and I said you'd only get one go with retirement. So, and I'd loads of things I wanted to do, and been like you've been chained to a desk for. I remember producing you when you were.
That was your first gig, wasn't it?
That was my first job in RT, and it's downhill ever since. But no, you're chained to the desk every day. And I know you go around the country a good bit. You bring the programme out. Liveline being Liveline, we seldom went out.
Well, the Funny Fridays.
Yeah, but they kind of petered out in the last few years, unfortunately. But they were great. I loved them.
Now, you have been relatively busy, I suppose.
Yeah, I went around visiting good causes that the National Lottery Fund, and they're all charity groups all over the country, and they were making videos for them and that they could use, hopefully, to get more money off different organisations. And that was absolutely brilliant, because I hadn't been around. I know that sounds odd, but I hadn't been around the country.
Yeah, when you used to work on the Gay Brunch Show, you did get out.
Yeah,
about a bit,
that was, and Pat, that stood to me. That 10 years I went around representing gay on earth, so to speak. I went to so many places. So when Liveline, with people that say I'm in Baddy the Hob or whatever, you'd have a memory of it. But I thought the country had changed. So it sounds a bit naive for me to say that, but I thought the new arts centres, the new schools, the new third level institutions, the new factories. It's a good country out there. In the main, it is a good country. And the groups I met were all volunteers, no hierarchy, no messing, and they're all getting stuck into doing different things like saving the environment or running a boxing club or whatever. They were great. Or a dementia cafe down in Kells. Wonderful people. Wonderful.
Now, you're also a painter.
Yeah, and decorator. I do.
No, fine art. Fine art.
Hardly. Hall stairs and landing. Yeah, I just love. I find it extraordinarily relaxing. And as I keep saying to everyone, anyone can paint. Anyone can paint. Just try it, buy a set of watercolours and buy a decent pad of paper. That's the key. A decent, strong pad of paper and 2 brushes, no more than 2 brushes. And just doodle.
Going back, though, to Liveline, I asked you, did you miss it? You don't seem to feel... And yet, there must be some yearning, some nostalgia.
Because you'd love to be, instead of shouting at the radio, you'd love to be on the radio and doing... I still get angry. I read Paul Williams' brilliant book recently, Crooks 2 it's called. Yeah. And I read the chapter on Anglo-Irish, which mentions Liveline, because they were giving out about Liveline. And I was so angry at the end of it. I was so angry again because Paul Williams got the scoop. He got the tapes. I was just so angry at the end of it. And I said to myself, I'd love to revisit stories like that. But anyway.
Now, Liveline in your time was quite a campaigning programme. Yeah. I mean, you got involved in various things. Yeah. Thinking back, what were the most memorable, the most telling of the campaigns?
Well, getting rid of the head shops.
Yeah.
That was I really went crazy on that. We did about 2 weeks on how women were treated in maternity hospitals, which was a revelation to me and to a lot of people. And we got pushback from some of the maternity hospitals. And in fact, the only master was Chris Fitzpatrick from the Coombe, who came out in support of us and said he was going to play the programme to young medics. The menopause, obviously, that whole discussion, finding people. That a woman, the taxi driver at Dublin Airport, rang in at 5 to 3, and he put this woman on the phone. Sajiv was her name. She's originally from India, but they're living in England. And every bank holiday weekend, we one coming up, she used to come to Ireland to look for her sister that had disappeared kind of 15, 20 years previously. And we found her within the day. Which was incredible. And they were reunited the following day. And that we found her because she was on a bus, and the bus driver had Liveline on. I'm sure half the people were saying turn it off. And I asked the question I asked Ajib was, because she didn't want to give out her sister's full name for obvious reasons. I asked her, had you a nickname for her when you were, sisters growing up in the bedroom or whatever? And she gave out the nickname, and off she came.
So without compromising her sister's privacy, she was able to find her.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant.
Now, things like corporal punishment came up over.
I'm just
a marathon.
I'm just listening. I was thinking, Pat, the other day, like, why? I was listening back to it actually. Why did when corporal punishment came up in 2024? Okay, and it was a discussion that started about sexual abuse in school, and one of the callers said, "Joe, talk about corporal punishment." Now, I thought that had been done so many times, but I suddenly realised, listening back to the tapes the other day or whatever, that people were of an age that were ringing in that had gone through horrific. I counted 60 different ways, Pat, that children were assaulted in class by adults.
Yeah, but the violence back in those days was quite casual in the classroom. I mean, they would fling a wooden duster across. If it hit somebody, so be it. It would be deemed assault today.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, it was I found a document from the Leamy School, which is Frank McCourt School, 1929 in Limerick, where it was a circular from it was called the National Education. It was effectively banning corporal punishment. It was completely ignored.
Completely ignored. Now, you have other fish to fry at the moment. We were talking during the break before we started about being hard of hearing. And it's something that most broadcasters eventually suffer from. I'm wearing headphones. I've worn headphones for decades.
I know. And we all have, And by the way, most young people are now wearing big headphones for decades, and they're not on the air. Yeah, to my shame, I got a hearing test 5 years ago, and I hadn't had one since. And I got one there about 3 months ago, and I'm okay, thank God. But there is a slight change in there's a slight change.
Well, there's a change with age anyway.
Yeah, but I'm going to, like, when people get their letter in the door for the NCT, they run around the house like a headless chicken. They get the Hoover out to get the dog hairs off the seat. They wash everything, run down to the garage, change the word car, change one letter and put in the word ear, E-A-R. And how often do you get your ears checked? And what Specsavers are doing at the minute, it's free, there's no issue. They're doing free hearing checks. Just go in and book a hearing check. And it's very scientific. And even if one woman I was talking to when we were making the campaign, she said, I was annoyed. My son said to me the other day, Ma'am, you need your hearing checked. And I gave out to him. I said, well, you should have said to him, he was in his 30s, I'll go for one if you come with me and you have a hearing check as well, because you've had those headphones on since you were 8. And even if your hearing, please God, is okay, you have a record. You get it checked next year.
You've got a baseline.
You get a baseline. And it's very scientific, totally unobtrusive. You don't have to fill out a form, don't have to tick any boxes. You just go into this booth and you're asked to press a button when you hear a particular sound. It's as simple as that. I think, and the fact that it's free, I think is really fair play to Specsavers for doing it. But I think because it's free and they're everywhere. And like I met one woman and I said to her, you go into, the whole thing, Specsavers, it's part of our language. You go into Specsavers. She said, yeah, I was in there 2 weeks ago. And the woman asked me, did I want a hearing check? And I said, no.
I'm here for glasses.
I said, why? And she said, there's a bit of a stigma, isn't there, when we were kids about children. And as people know, wearing a hearing device is the exact same as wearing spectacles, glasses. It doesn't affect your work. It doesn't affect your travel. It doesn't affect your insurance. So that's how it should be regarded.
What plans now, Joe?
Plans?
A book? Another one?
Oh, yeah, have one of mine, definitely, definitely.
Because you're Children of the Rising, that was a fantastic enterprise.
Yeah, I'm saying that's 110 years. It's since 1916. It's probably one of the things I'm most proud of.
And then Children of the Troubles.
And Children of the Troubles were Freya. Yeah, well, I still get letters about that. And as I've said, we found, I think it was 168 children who've been killed in the Troubles. And then we got letters from other people saying, why didn't you mention my child? And they'd say, like, on that day in Northern Ireland, there was 14 people killed. We were using newspapers. We were using Lost Lives. We got notices read out thanks to the Primate of All Ireland, Eamon Martin. He made an announcement at every Mass in Northern Ireland if anyone wanted to get involved. Librarians were brilliant. So what I think is scandalous is today nobody knows the exact figure of how many people were killed in the Troubles. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And if our sample of children 16 and under, it's underestimated. We underestimated it by about 6%. So that means people say 3,000. No, that would bring it up to over 4,000. And can you imagine the pain this people are still going through? As one of the father, James Kennedy's father, said to us, bullets never stop travelling. It killed my son. Outside Sean Graham bookmakers just massacred. And my wife died within the year. Bullets don't stop travelling. Bullets don't stop travelling.
Joe Duffy, long may you prosper in your very busy retirement.
And PK, one of the reasons I wanted to come in, apart from talking about Specsavers and the free hearing test, is to be with you in your last.
In my move, I'm moving. I'm moving the show. I'm not going anywhere.
I know that, and you'd be brilliant at the weekends. And I worked with you when you were my first presenter when I started in RTE, and you were great fun. You're a great gossip and great. You're fun to be with, and your knowledge is breathtaking. You are, and you're not gone.
No, I'm not. He's not going away, you know.
Yeah, no, he's not going away, which is great for your station. And best of luck to Claire next week. And Anton is starting, isn't he?
He's starting Tuesday, I think. Yeah, he'll be on
the morning slot. Is a challenging one, even time-wise, and he's a single presenter. I've met him outside in his motorbike.
He'd be looking for more money if he keep going. Joe, thank you very much for joining us on the show, and good luck with everything.
And you, good luck on your days off.